All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today at the Microsoft Talk Track, where we're going to be talking about upsell to a native team room experience. And my name is Paul Falzon from Neat. And yeah, thanks for joining. So there's a couple of things that we're going to talk about today, and I think that the real idea of today is trying to paint a picture of what's possible around transforming the meeting space to something really easy to use and to consume. And I remember quite a number of years ago, one of my very first sales calls to a customer, it was a financial services customer in Martin Place in Sydney, and I met with the CEO and we sat down in a room and he said to me, look, thanks for coming. This is what we want to talk about, blah, blah, blah. I said, great. I said, well, what are you using today? And he goes, he just sort of head turned and looked towards the corner of the room. And in the corner, there was all this sort of technology. There was like a PC, a keyboard, a mouse, some sort of camera, and all of it looked like it was unorganized and never used. And I said, oh, that doesn't look good. And he just sort of under his breath made a comment. Clearly he wasn't impressed or satisfied with what they had. And this is something that I've taken notice to quite a bit, is that there's organizations out there in the market that have made investments in technology but aren't really utilizing them or not getting value from them. And this has been a real problem that has plagued the world of meeting rooms and video conferencing and virtual meetings, or whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to refer to it as. So these are just some typical figures from Sapio research around what are the sort of, what does the research tell us about meeting rooms? And look, it's not good. There's a lot of time wasted. If you're an organization that has made heavy investments in your meeting rooms and you are experiencing this, that's a real problem. And that is certainly something that customers are looking to solve. And I think that's been a real big opportunity for Neat, which is the company I work for, is that we feel like we've got a great way to address these problems. The good news is, as a certified Microsoft Teams OEM partner, we've also been enjoying a lot of the great work that Microsoft has been doing in this space. And this is just a bit of a summary of where Microsoft's vision is. And I think it really aligns well to the Neat vision. And that is that, first of all, the meeting should just work, right? You don't want to spend 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of every meeting trying to figure out, how do I join the meeting? How do I share content? How do I pass control over to someone? How do I adjust volume? All those little things that tend to be quite a nuisance if the technology is not right. The other thing is we need to see and be seen. So this is something that a phrase that I've only heard since working with Microsoft, but it's a pretty simple phrase, and that is that, well, you as a participant in a meeting should be seen, and so should the other side. Now, as simple as that sounds, the reality is that it hasn't always been the case, and even still to this day. And I'll give you another example of, and this is something I'm sure you've all seen before, how typical is it to walk in, sit down in a meeting, you could be joining from home, from your PC or laptop, or from your mobile device, or from another meeting room, and you're connecting with another meeting space. And there might be 10, 15 people in that meeting space, but you don't necessarily know who any of them are, because you can see the whole room, but you don't necessarily see anyone clearly. And that's a real problem. So that's what, the second point is trying to address, is making sure that everyone can clearly be viewed, because that also helps promote the participation, the collaboration, which is the point of the third point, which is around inclusion. So it's one thing to be seen and be seen, but also then how do you actually promote collaboration in that meeting? And what I mean by that is that everyone has an equal opportunity to contribute and participate in that meeting, whether it be talking or whether it be presenting and sharing content, whether it be co-creation of content. Not everyone has had an equal footing in that scenario. So this is something that Microsoft really believe can be addressed through Microsoft Teams rooms. And where I'm going with this is that, the technology choices from a hardware standpoint in the meeting room can have a big impact whether this can be accomplished. Sorry, I'm just going to minimize that little window if that's possible.
You'll need to drag your mouse over onto a separate screen. So you'll need to go off that screen onto this screen.
Oh, right. Maybe I'll just leave it. Too hard basket. So the good news is that the market is becoming aware of this, and that technology buyers and business leaders want to solve this problem. So it's a really great conversation for us to be having at the moment as a vendor and as a Neat partner. So the way to achieve this is looking at selecting the right devices in that environment. And going back to that example I gave you at the beginning, what the customer that I was talking to at the time had in that room was basically a PC and a USB camera and a USB keyboard. It was basically a bit of a Frankenstein approach to how you build a meeting room solution. The thing that has really changed in the world of Microsoft is now that we have dedicated Microsoft Team Rooms appliances, and their job is to really make that meeting work in the best way possible in the quickest amount of time, so that we can get, the great results that they are striving for. So what does it actually look like? Well, what we're actually talking about here is hardware or devices that are intentionally designed to deliver specific user experiences that support Microsoft Teams. Now, most customers that I speak to today have used Microsoft Teams in some shape or form on their personal device. This is about having a dedicated piece of hardware in a meeting room that can deliver that same experience. So as we move into a room, we're not using our laptop or our PC anymore. We're expected to use technology in a room. It's about delivering that consistent experience and making sure that it works first time. That's the difference between a native Teams room solution as opposed to the Frankenstein approach that I mentioned before, which is lots of different branded hardware, kind of like a bespoke solution, if I may, which is plagued with problems and challenges from a user perspective. So although the technology people that made the decision to put that in the room at the time had good intentions and felt comfortable with that technology, the people that have to use it on a day-to-day basis are not. And that was the big failing there. So the vision there that I pointed out before around where Microsoft Teams rooms and where vendors such as Neat, where we're delivering native Teams experiences and native Teams devices, is about solving that problem. So let me make a comparison, right? So the idea of a native Teams room device is that it's easy to use, that we can get on that meeting in the quickest time possible. If it's taking 5 minutes to start a meeting, then you're a candidate to be looking at this. It needs to be inclusive, see and be seen, and also inclusive from the fact that if I can do something from my desk in a Teams meeting, whether it be content sharing, co-creating, whiteboarding, I should be able to do that in the meeting room as well. And that's what part of having a native Teams solution can provide. It needs to be flexible, so it needs to accommodate for all different types of customers, with different budgets and different types of meeting spaces. The smallest of meeting spaces to the largest of meeting spaces, there is a Microsoft Teams room solution for each. And also, importantly, and this is one of the things that sometimes gets missed, but it's actually really important, is that it's secure. It's cloud connected to Microsoft's secure cloud. And because it's connected, it can be managed. And that's the difference between like a BYOD style solution that we've got on the other side of the page here, compared to a dedicated Teams room appliance. Because the fact that it's not connected, it means it's very hard to support, especially remotely. And that means you're putting a lot of the onus on the user or users of that meeting to figure it out themselves. And if it's too hard, they just won't use it. It's not as inclusive. It doesn't have the intelligence and the smarts of the audio-visual capabilities that you get in a dedicated appliance. It doesn't tend to be very flexible, and it also can be vulnerable. because the fact that it can't be monitored and managed and it allows people to plug whatever they want into it can pose a bit of a problem from a security point of view as well. A traditional BYOD solution typically is made up of many bits of pieces, right? Which can also be from many different vendors. So you could have a meeting room that your IT department would have to support, you know, if you could imagine that was a number of different brands, which don't necessarily integrate that well together and are very hard to remotely manage. So what have we got there? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different devices which Neat and Microsoft can actually bring into a single device. So here we've got a Neat device. It's called the Neat board, and that is actually your display. It's your camera, it's your microphone, your speakers, it's the compute that connects securely to the Microsoft Teams cloud. It's also your controller, so you can start call, end call, volume, mute, dismiss, share, whiteboard, all that great stuff in a dedicated appliance. And you can even see here in standby, it's showing you calendar information. It's back ending into Exchange or whatever your calendaring system is. And it just works. It means I can go into a meeting room. If my meeting room is being booked and scheduled, I just hit start, away it goes. If it's an ad hoc meeting, Microsoft Teams gives me the option to start an instant meeting as well. And that's a much better experience than having to connect and make sure a PC or a NUC is up and running. So what can help deliver a seamless and inclusive native MTR experience? Well, I think the experiences piece is really important because that's what's actually the differentiator between a good solution and a bad solution, is what is that experience like? Now at Neat, we're very big on experiences. We figured that if we're going to enter the market as a video conferencing vendor, we need to be doing things differently and we need to improve what the current landscape looks like in terms of video hardware and video conferencing. And we do that right from the get-go. The moment that you actually open up a Neat device, that unboxing and setup experience is like nothing I've ever seen before. And I've been doing this for a while now. And that is, you open it up, there's no instruction booklet because it's not needed, right? We've kept it as simple as possible. Everything's in the box that you need. And the device itself actually guides you how to set itself up. So it's actually teaching you, if you're a first-time installer or user of Neat, all of the guides are actually digitally found on the device. So you turn it on and the screen will pop up and say, all right, you're registering to Teams. How are you going to mount it? Are you going to wall mount it? Are you going to desk mount it? Whatever it might be. And then it will guide you through that step by step, everything in terms of the physical setup, the mounting, and the network connectivity. And the idea behind that is that you're realizing the value of that investment as quick as possible. The point around see and be seen and that inclusive meeting experience that Microsoft have as part of their strategy for making amazing meetings possible. Well, Neat actually was onto this very early in the game, and we came out with a technology called Neat Symmetry. Neat Symmetry has now been available in all of our products for about 1.5 years now. We patented it, and what it essentially does is solve that problem that I mentioned before, where you've got a meeting room with lots of people, but you can't see them. Well, through our AI-driven camera technology, we can make decisions on the fly that allow the camera to view and share to allow you to see the people in the meeting room really close and up front, as if they were sitting in front of their desk with a camera. And you can actually see an example of that here. This was a game changer because what it meant now is that I can actually meet with a group of people in a room and actually see them and see their facial expressions and see when they're not getting something or if they don't agree with something. That was a real issue with the communication style that we had, that we were limited to, because not all communication is verbal. Actually, a lot of it is, body language. So that was really important. By bringing this out, though, we actually created a problem, and that was tracking cameras are fantastic until they start tracking things you don't want them to track. And we'd seen examples of that. Customers had meeting rooms with glass doors or windows, or they were putting our products in open plan spaces, so like in a collaboration huddle or something. And every time someone would walk past, the camera would start tracking them. So very quickly through software, we were able to solve that problem, because in our products, we have quite a number of different sensors. We've got environmental sensors that can help you see what's going in your meeting room, from temperature, air quality, humidity, but also a depth sensor. And that depth sensor allows us to determine how far into the room that we want the cameras to track and also how wide. So that if we do have glass walls, the cameras can be calibrated not to go beyond a certain perimeter. And that was a very quick and capable way of solving the problem, which another patent that just got approved in the last month. The same can be said for audio. So we just talked a little bit about the visual. What about audio? Because audio can be the difference between a good and bad meeting. Like, how many people in this room have been on a meeting where there's, you know, people scrunching paper or tapping their pens or dogs barking in the background or Mr. Whippy doing a drive-by? Those sort of things can be a real nuisance, right? So the same applies to audio, making sure that that's addressed as well. So Neat has some very smart capability in our products for audio. This includes a reverberation feature. So where we've got rooms with lots of echo and boomy acoustics, we can cancel that out. We can also cancel out sound that is not of the human voice that might be disrupting the call. And that makes sure that not only can we keep the visual side in check, we can also do the same with the audio. These sort of capabilities you don't typically find in a BYOD PC-based appliance. So this is one of the big differences between going by a purpose-built Teams appliance versus a build-it-yourself BYOD solution connected to a Windows machine. And speaking of BYOD mode, that doesn't mean that we can't allow for that sort of scenario. So there's always going to be customers with a need to still be able to have a meeting outside of a Microsoft Teams meeting. And Microsoft have done a really good job with supporting third-party meetings. So, you know, an MTR appliance can now join and participate in a Zoom meeting. They can participate in a WebEx meeting. But failing that, a customer with a dedicated appliance such as Neat can just plug their laptop into it, and that'll instantly switch it over to the PC in what we call BYOD mode, and then you can use whatever meeting client that you're running on that PC to participate in a meeting as well. So there's always that option that if you need it, but the reality is that a dedicated appliance and Microsoft Teams Cloud more often than not can help you navigate through that without the need to. So what else is different about a BYOD solution and an appliance? Well, the first is, as I mentioned before, being cloud connected also gives us the ability to manage those spaces and utilize those spaces a lot better. So what you actually got here is a Microsoft Teams room scheduling panel sitting outside of the meeting room. So in the meeting room, you'll have the Neat device that's your dedicated Teams room appliance. You'll also have the controller, but you can also have a scheduler outside of the room. Now, those depth sensors that I talked about before, they also serve another purpose. If a room is available, like the one that you can see here, there's a green light on the side of the device. The moment I walk into that room, the depth sensors will become aware that there's someone in there, and therefore that room will book itself automatically and synchronize with the company's calendar. That sort of thing you can't do with a BYOD USB device in a meeting room because it's not cloud connected, right? So we can actually plan for the unplanned. You know, we can plan for meetings that someone just decided, I need to have an ad hoc meeting. There's an available resource. I'm just going to walk in and consume that space. We can actually do that automatically now. And that's the power and the difference between something that's just, you know, a unintelligent device versus a dedicated Teams device. This goes a long way in supporting IT as well. So if something is Teams certified, like Neat, it's tested for reliability. It basically meets the requirements that we have to go through to become certified by Microsoft Teams as a Teams Rooms device. So if you go into Microsoft's website and say, you know, have a look at what is a Teams Room device and what does it provide, at a minimum, we have to do everything that is required of us to be certified. But it also means that Microsoft have tested and approved that product and are happy to add it to its list of OEMs. And that's really good from a support point of view, really good from an after-sales support point of view, because not only we, the vendor Neat, will support you. It'll also mean that you'll be supported by Microsoft as well. It'll give you insights to what's going into your meeting room. So being cloud connected to the Microsoft Teams cloud, we can leverage those sensors that we've got in there to tell us things like people count statistics, both in real time and historical, and also the environmental data that we're capturing as well. So temperature, humidity, air quality, etc. These are things that typically meeting rooms technology devices haven't done before, and that you won't see from a BYOD style USB device. And of course, the remote management. So if you're an organization that's a multinational, or you've got locations throughout Australia and the region, having the ability to remotely manage and have remote visibility of those products is something that you can't do from a device that's not connected. So that is one of the benefits of having a Microsoft Teams Room appliance similar to Neat, is that being cloud connected gives you that insights and the ability to manage effectively as well. So let me summarize, why do we go native? Well, first of all, less components, less points of failure. You know, everyone that works in the office thinks they're an IT person, so they tinker with things that they shouldn't, and then they break them, and then suddenly, oh, I'm not an IT person, I'll just call IT to fix that. That can be a real problem, especially if you're trying to remotely support these devices. There's less frustration in trying to get up and running. The sooner we can arrive to the meeting, the sooner we can get the outcomes of the meeting achieved. There's big boost in productivity. If we were to multiply 5 minutes by, you know, how many meeting rooms we've got by 7 days a week, by 52 weeks a year, you start to quickly figure out how much productivity gains we can make if we start to solve those problems. And also it helps the guys in IT, so they can actually focus on the things that are more important to supporting the business, not being, you know, the person troubleshooting meeting room problems. And all of this can be done in a very small portfolio of products. So what you actually see here is the range of Neat Microsoft Teams Rooms devices that are all certified. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 products, but 6 products that can essentially work in 95% of the meeting room spaces that you see in a hybrid organization today, or a hybrid working organization. So what I encourage you to do is take a look at the document we've created. It's called the Modern Office Guide with Neat and Microsoft. So this actually shows you the opportunities and the different spaces and places within a hybrid and modern work organization that we can basically deliver a Teams experience to. Everything from, you know, hot desks, booths, small, medium, large meeting spaces, town hall spaces. There's basically anywhere that you think you can meet with someone and collaborate, we've got a device for. So check out that QR code there, and that's a really, really cool PDF that can help you get some ideas. And also check out our website at neat.no, where you can see a lot of this information as well. Now, for those of you that here that are an AV provider or a reseller, we encourage you to have a look at our Neat Partner Portal. And the Neat Partner Portal is for our partners that are representing us in the market. There's a lot of information here about our products, but there's also a lot of Microsoft and Microsoft Teams Room information as well to help you support customers with requirements there. We've also got a product evaluation program. So if your customer or you like what you see, you've got an option to evaluate it as well. And that works really well. We've got about a 90% plus success rate with that program. So let me just finish up with a couple of points. You know, I guess the idea of today's talk was to really point out the differences of why, you know, you should consider positioning or using, if you're a customer, a dedicated approved Teams Rooms appliance, such as the ones that we have at Neat. All of our products are certified, as I said before, and consider that versus, you know, unintelligent, bespoke bits and pieces of hardware that have traditionally plagued the uptake of meeting spaces. And ask yourself, are your spaces productive and in demand? If not, why? Familiarize yourself with what Microsoft Teams can do in the meeting room. So a lot of people know how to use Microsoft Teams at the desktop level and on the mobile and personal device level, but there's a whole lot of cool stuff that we can do in the meeting room if we've got the right devices to do that, which we do have. Then determine how do we solve those problem spaces. That modern workplace guide that I mentioned before, that's a really great place to start. Or if you're here in person at Integrate this week, come down to our stand. All of the devices that I've shown you on the screen there are available to demonstrate, so we can show that to you. Bookmark and visit our website, neat.no. No, because we're a Norwegian company. We've got some amazing people in Oslo that design and make these products. If you're an existing partner, register and sign into our partner portal and look at speaking to your customers about talk to them about the meeting space challenges that they're having, because there are really simple ways and simple technology solutions to solve that, both with Teams. If you're in the IT and AV channel and you're interested in partnering with Neat, we're very open to having a discussion with you. Come and see us here if you're in person today. Otherwise, visit our partner website, which is partners.neat.no, to submit your interest, and we can have a conversation very quickly. And also offer a demonstration unit. So if you're talking to a customer and trying to help them understand the value of going with a Microsoft Teams room versus traditional USB or BYOD technology, then we can actually help them realize that through our demo program. So let us know how we can help there. And with that, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it. If you are here in person, feel free to take a Neat bag. There's some goodies in there, and hope to see you at the stand at Integrate. Thanks.